Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time this last week in Topeka. We're at Light of the World. We were there for their summer camp meeting. We were there Sunday, Monday. Had a great time. And once again, we're staying in Kansas, the old Kansas tour this next weekend. If you're anywhere near Dodge City, we'll be at Abundant Life there Sunday morning, Sunday night. So come join us. We'll have a great time. We'll get into the Word, get into end times, and we're so close to the coming of the Lord. It's wonderful to see churches get so excited about Jesus coming to the earth so quick. So that's what we do with the End of Days Update. We're looking at the things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because we know the second coming has 80 or 90 or more signs. Crazy how many signs there are for the second coming. But the rapture is signless, so we kind of have to back up 7 years and see what it looks like for that. And really, probably the predominant thing that happens is Russia attacks Israel just after the rapture. Well, look around. There were pacts made this last week between Iran and Russia, even intensifying what they're going to do with the Ezekiel 38 war. But man, there's so much stuff happening. So why do we get into this? We get into how close we are, because I hear people all the time, you don't need to hear about end times. Well, it shows you the finish line, so you accelerate. I've never seen a runner say, whatever you do, don't tell me where the finish line is. No, they want to know so they can exert. Same thing for a race. You see the white flag come out because cars take more chances on that last lap. So that flag indicates you got one more lap. Well, there's a flag been going out for quite a while now that we're on the last lap. And it's not about escape theology, it's a hustle theology. So Paul talked about the baptism 12 times, coming of the Lord 52 times. For every one verse there is about the first coming, there's 8 times more about the second coming. So very documented. Why? So that we could see it and know what to do. We'd respond as opposed to just cruising. We hustled. It's like Noah. I couldn't imagine Noah getting up on the ark and going, hey, relax, everything's good. No, I'm sure there was an urgency about his preaching. So with all the things with all the nations right now blatantly doing what they're doing, I mean, I think 50 to 80 years ago, they would do the same things, but it was subversive. It was underground. It wasn't so public. Iran basically says, we want to annihilate Israel. We want to annihilate America. They don't even try to keep that quiet. So all the stuff that's happening, you got Benjamin Netanyahu said about the war in Gaza down by Rafah is literally most of the fighting is coming to an end. There still is missiles and rockets being fired from Gaza into Israel. You had Tel Aviv go dark yesterday, almost half the day, which is pretty crazy. All of the talk is now that the war is getting ready to shift to the North Hezbollah. Canada told its citizens to get out of Lebanon. The EU told its citizens to get out of Lebanon. Germany and France said get out of Lebanon. That's how it's looking like. Now why? Because Gantz told the Hezbollah there in Lebanon, we will destroy your army within 4 days of starting fighting. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going to get ready to happen. It shows us we're almost there. You have the airport in Beirut. Iran's been hauling tons of stuff since November. The Jerusalem Post came out showing how all this containers and all this stuff has been shipped down there to the Beirut airport. Now, a lot of stuff was going through Damascus, and Israel literally blew those things up almost once a week. But now you have all the stuff that's gotten to the Beirut airport. It's been there for months, so they could assemble all this stuff. So Hezbollah probably has a lot more arms than everyone thinks that they do. So you had Israel's defense minister come to the United States yesterday. Our Secretary of Defense met with him, and they went over what happened with some of the arms that were being shipped to Israel. Things got slowed down last week. But in the middle of that, you had 50 F-15s get awarded to Israel. So Israel's still getting more weapons that they need. So it's wonderful that we stand there to bless them. So you had the United States do sanctions against Iran, their banking networks. There are several different areas that they hit them because Iran's basically doing what they're not supposed to do, and that's making nuclear weapons. The centrifuge explanation from last week, the cascades that they've been putting in, the Atomic Energy Agency confirmed it. Look at all these cascades of brand new ultra high-tech centrifuges to get nuclear bombs ready. So I think, boy, the next 6 months you're going to see some unbelievable stuff happen to stop that. Because Israel can't let that get as far as they want to get it, because it's just too dangerous. So you have weird stuff with weather that's happening this last week too. You had massive wildfires in New Mexico, along with floods right after that, with hail, golf ball size hailstones after a fire's burned. It looked apocalyptic. The picture I saw, I was like, man, this looks like during the tribulation. You had Sydney, Australia had a year's worth of rain in 6 months. You had the Midwest having all kinds of floods. So you got nature doing weird stuff. I haven't really gotten into it about the asteroids, but you got asteroids doing weird stuff every week. It is sad that even this brand new technology we have keeps locating the asteroids after they pass by. But every single day, you've got some pretty radical instruments flying by. So there is all the things coming together with Iran, with Russia. Russia fired a missile, or actually the Ukraine fired a missile and hit people on the beach of Russia. Russia once again, I heard Putin this last week, 4 different locations in the news say, we will target London, we will target Paris with nuclear weapons. So it's all the more crazy. And you have Israel's, one of their brand new submarines, it's being tracked by Russia. They thought it would not, they're basically spying on this submarine right there that Israel just built. So all the things are coming together that the Bible says you'll see. You had North Korea fire an intercontinental ballistic missile a couple of days ago. You got the tests happening like that. So we talk about all this war stuff, which is kind of weird to hear nothing but war mongering, but it's all these things leading up to the Ezekiel 38 war, so it tells us how close we are. So we get into all this because he loves you. He wants you to see that all the stuff that's happening is pointing to the king's about to come back. How wild is that? Now, much more is happening behind the scenes with Netanyahu. He's still under fight from his own people, and it's completely intriguing to me that people would fight, not be in unity when they're in the middle of war. So, but you have Israel being surrounded on 7 different fronts right now they're being fired at. So with all of that, we always go to the scripture every week. What do we look at? We look at the blatant things that are written in the word. Number 1, Israel regathered. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those 2 events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. So we're privileged, we're blessed. What an exciting thing to watch the 2 things that Jesus said, if you saw these, you're in the last generation. He basically said that generation is not going to pass away till all is fulfilled. But then you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You have the Capitol building in Strasbourg. It's built like the Tower of Babel, destroyed at the top of it. Their slogan is, we don't need God, we'll be our own God. It's crazy. You have Russia rebuild the archway for Baal worship right in Palmyra where the Tower of Babel was. The Talmud says that's the last sign you'll see before the Messiah comes. Interesting to have all this stuff happening right there. I talk about when we went to Petra a few months ago. Petra has no water. This is where the Jews will go for safety midway through the trip. A few years ago, water started shooting out of the side of a rock, supernatural, formed a river right there in the middle of nowhere. So God's already making provision for them. And you have the Euphrates rivers running dry now. Why? Because the kings of the east will come across at the second coming, just before the second coming for the Battle of Armageddon. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount, fish in the Dead Sea. This one freaks me out. The Dead Sea turned blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was on the Day of Atonement last year. Absolutely amazing. You had predatory birds. You got 172 different species of predatory birds start showing up in the land. I mean, you got the cleanup crew in Israel right after the Ezekiel 38 war. God calls on the fowl of the earth to clean the land up. 7 years later, the Battle of Armageddon, he calls on them again. So you have them ready. You had the red heifers. The crazy one about the red heifers is the ones they have there don't have a blemish. They weren't clipped because of COVID. And they're spotless. And they were shipped over from Texas as service animals. I think that must have been pretty cool if in the airport someone's got a leash with a cow on it. But that's how the red heifers got to Israel. So all these things are in place. The Temple Mount Institute, you look at a specific thing here, one specific thing here, and put all together, it shows you blatantly we're about to see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Wow. Well, you've got all kinds of signs. Hard to even go through all of them, but then you got signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. Absolutely remarkable. Blood red moon is Passover is when he died for us. Tabernacles is when he's going to come back and tabernacle with men. So the heavens are signaling, I died for you, coming back. Died for you, coming back. Pretty blatant. Amazing. After that, we go from signs to signals. You got that, and then you have the Bethlehem star. When Jesus was born, you had Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together. I like that Regulus formed retrograde motion. It looks like it's going backwards, but it's just retrograde, and it's crowned Jupiter with what it's supposed to crown it with. Pretty amazing. And then you have all that happening right at the birth of Jesus. And what was it last year? You had NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. We got Jupiter, we got Regulus, we got Venus, Bethlehem star. What was the constellation when he was born? Virgo. This last year when it was on, what happened when the convergence came of those planets? It was Leo. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The heavens are declaring the glory of God. And what is the glory of God? Jesus is the brightness of the glory of God. So we have all of these things that point to we're about to see him. What do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. We get engaged. We don't fit church into our life. It is our lives. I always thought right before the rapture of the church, people would just be running house to house screaming, woo, the Lord's about to come. And it's a little different. It's not quite like that. I was in Mattoon, Illinois last year, and we rented a sound company to do the sound for this camp meeting. And this camp, the owner of the sound company, he'd never really been in a meeting like this. I taught on the signs. He came down to the basement and sat beside me right I was eating my lunch. He goes, hey, if all this you're saying is true, we should be going from house to house telling people Jesus is just about to come. He'd never heard the message. He heard all the signs on the coming of the Lord, and he said we should be telling everybody. So what do we do with the info we have? Number one, it brings joy, it brings peace, it brings happiness because we're about to see the King, and there is no bad news for the church. For the world, it's very bad, but for the church, there is no bad news. So Peter was real specific about don't let the edge of your expectation get dulled, quoting Jesus. And then he said, don't fall from your own steadfastness, the error of the wicked. What is the error of the wicked? They don't think Jesus is coming. They think things are going to continue. Well, they're not going to continue. There is a change coming. The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We'll come back next week. We'll look at what Israel's done to Hamas and Hezbollah and get ready for some drastic stuff with Iran. So wild things ahead. We're about to see the King. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.